What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel. Week 8 is a big week in the college football season. We're starting off with the biggest matchup of the week set to take place in the Horseshoe in Columbus, Ohio. It's Scarlet the Shoe time when the Ohio State Buckeyes get to host the Penn State Nittany Lions. Always a fun matchup year in and year out, and this time there are a lot of stakes on the line here for this Big Ten East showdown. We're going to dive into it in just a little bit, but before we do, you guys know I got to thank you for all the support the channel has seen as of late. It's been crazy to me. If you want to continue to show your support, hey, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when videos get uploaded. But guys, there are more ways than that to help me support this channel. You guys are doing one of them right now just simply by watching this video, and you guys can do more by liking, commenting, sharing, and anything else that you guys may be willing and or able to do to help me support my channel. Whatever you guys are able to do means a lot to me. Let's dive on into this massive top 10 showdown in the Big Ten East. So, every other conference has had some big games. We've had the Big 12 have some big games. Of course, the Pac-12 just had Oregon and Washington last week. Even conferences like the ACC and SEC have had big games. The Big Ten finally gets its turn in the spotlight. A top 10 showdown in the Horseshoe in Columbus, Ohio. Big noon kickoff game should be a lot of fun to watch, as this game annually usually is, right? Penn State and Ohio State, always a very fun game. We should get another fun one in the Horseshoe this weekend. But let's start by diving on into the stats that both of these teams have put up so far this season. We are going to start with the 7th ranked Nittany Lions, as they are the road team, and Drew Aller has delivered as, or I should say, Drew Aller is what everyone thought he was going to be, right? 1,254 yards, 12 touchdowns, has yet to throw an interception yet this season, and that offensive line has done a great job in run blocking and pass protection, opening up the lanes for guys like Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. Of course, probably the best 1-2 punch in the running back room in the entire country so far this season. Both guys are averaging over 4 yards per carry, over 200 yards per game on the ground throughout the entirety of Penn State's team. You also have a guy like Trey Potts back there that's been running really well for them, and Drew Aller has flashed the ability with the legs here and there as well. Again, has only been sacked 4 times. This is an offensive line that's doing their job. It's an offense that's doing their job receiving room as well. They have a nice veteran wide receiver in Keandre Lambert-Smith and a ton of other talented receivers. Tight end Theo Johnson, Harrison Wallace is out there as well. This is the Penn State offense that has been flowing, that has been grooving, and it eats up the clock. This is one of the leaders in the country in time of possession, something you don't see on screen. And something else you don't see on screen is while they are averaging 223 pass yards per game, and while Drew Aller has been really good for the most part, they have struggled to get the ball down the field. Now, it hasn't really mattered. This is a methodical offense that, well, it loves these short passes and just picks up chunk yardage here and there. This is not a huge, explosive, big play offense. They're going to go up against a Buckeye defense that's really good. And speaking of defense, and speaking of really good, let's talk about this Penn State Nittany Lion defense. They are one of the tops scoring defenses in the country, only allowing opponents to score 8 points per game, and they're coming off, I should say, a shutout win against the UMass Minutemen. This is a defense that defends everything. I believe they are the leaders in the nation in terms of fewest yards allowed per game. However, this is by far going to be the biggest test that this Penn State defense has played to date. So this defense is going to have to be ready, but I mean, what does this defense not do? They defend the run. That front 7 is elite. That back 4, back 5, however they happen to play, that secondary is elite. Both of those units are some of the best units across the entire country. They also force turnovers, 13 turnovers so far forced on the year. The third down defense is fantastic, and they are the best team in the nation in terms of sacks per game at generating pressure to opposing quarterbacks. This Penn State defense is elite. This offense moves methodically. It eats up clock. Penn State has every single reason to be thought of as a contender here for a spot in the college football playoff and for a spot in the Big Ten championship game to walk away champions of the Big Ten East. But so does this Ohio State team. And although Ohio State has had its questions here, this is the Buckeye team that is delivered, comes into this matchup undefeated with a marquee win on their schedule in the game against Notre Dame. The offense, okay, yes, Buckeye fans, it has not been what it has been in seasons past, but Kyle McCord has proved himself more often than not, right? Kyle McCord has 1,651 yards, 11 touchdowns to just 1 interception so far on the season. And then when they're healthy, this is the best wide receiver group in the entire country. Marvin Harrison Jr. has been electric all year. Cade Stover has really come some long ways. The health and questions of Emeka Egbuka coming into this game, hopefully the Buckeyes can get him healthy and on the field. He's a phenomenal player to watch. Julian Fleming, even freshmen by the likes of Cardinal Tate, and then Brandon Innes just caught his first pass the other day in the game against Purdue. But this is also a stable of running backs that runs the ball really well as well. Now, again, health and questions still loom for guys like Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, and Chip Trayanum. All three of those guys. Mayan and Travion didn't play in the game against Purdue, and then Chip ended up getting hurt. Dallin Hayden came in, ran really well. So this is still a really deep room of Ohio State running backs, but you'd like to see Henderson and Williams get healthy to be able to play in this game. They had some big impacts in the game against Penn State last year. It's an offense that doesn't really turn the football over, although did have some fumbling problems last week, was a little wet in West Lafayette. Third down has gotten a lot better here, but there are two weak spots to this Ohio State offense. It's one, coming away with touchdowns in the red zone. It's the Buckeye team that does not rank well in the nation at all in terms of red zone efficiency, and that offensive line. If that offensive line does not stand up and play their best game of the year, this is the Penn State defense that is going to live in that Buckeye backfield. And speaking of defense, well, it's a Buckeye defense that when you compare it to defenses from years prior has really stood out, right? And they are head over heels better than what they were a couple of seasons ago, right? So the third down defense has been pretty good. They're forcing turnovers here and there, and more recently, they've started to generate pressure, especially from their edge rushers like Jack Sawyer and a guy that took over this football game between these two teams last year in JT Tui Molowau. They're one of the best scoring defenses in the entire country. It's a defense that still does not allow the explosive plays. They are the only team in the country that is not allowed to play that is not allowed a play of 40 yards or more. So this is the Buckeye defense that knows what it takes to slow down the explosive plays. However, how do you really prepare to slow down the explosive plays when Penn State doesn't have them? Easy. You be able to stop the short stuff. You disrupt the flow that Penn State has, which leads me into my what to watch for, keys to the game, whatever you want to call it, just some things I think you should keep an eye on while you are watching this one. We are starting out with the road team. That's the Penn State Nittany Lions, and for starters, Drew Aller has to turn the downfield passing attack on. You have to test this Buckeye secondary because it still could end up being the weak part of this defense. This is the Buckeye secondary that got tested against Sam Hartman, and it performed really, really well. And they've had some of the highest graded players according to PFF. This is a Drew Aller-led offense that, look, the short stuff is going to work, and Penn State is going to have its moments where it will methodically move down the field. But in order to really stick it to this Ohio State defense, you have to force them to play the whole field. You have to turn the downfield passing on. That's something that Drew Aller and Penn State have really struggled with this year. And not just downfield passing, but explosive plays in general, they need to turn it on. But defensively, I mean, the job is really simple. Do what you've done all season long. Force turnovers, create pressure on the young, inexperienced quarterback in Kyle McCord. This is the biggest home game that Kyle McCord will have played in here, and create pressure on this offensive line. Again, if this Ohio State offensive line does not step up, this is a Penn State defensive front seven that is loaded with top 100 NFL draft picks, and it will live in the Buckeye backfield as this lived in the opponent backfields all season long. And it's time to see if Penn State can really live up to all of the hype. This is by far their biggest test of this season. Yeah, the Iowa game was a pretty nice spectrum mark, but Iowa, again, doesn't really have an offense. It's time to see if Penn State can live up to the hype. Offensively, defensively, it's time to see if Penn State is worth all the hype. For the Ohio State Buckeyes, kind of the same thing, right? It's time to see if all of this work really pays off, but you cannot, what I just spoke about a moment ago, you have to come away with touchdowns when you get into the red zone, no field goals. This is the Penn State team that loves to eat up the clock. They're one of the leaders in the country in terms of time of possession, and it's because they don't really need all of the explosive plays. When you eat up the clock and you have just the tempo and pace to move downfield like Penn State has, you need to come away with touchdowns here. You need to be able to match Penn State stride for stride if this ends up becoming a shootout game, because if it does, Penn State will control the clock. This Buckeye offense will have its moments. It will have its explosive plays, but when it gets into the red zone, it's important you come away with 6 instead of 3. And back to harking on this Buckeye offensive line. If this offensive line does not step up, this will probably be the last time I'll say it here. Well, maybe not, but Penn State is going to live in this Buckeye backfield if this offensive line does not step up, which means you can't miss assignments, you can't miss blocks, and everyone has to be accounted for. This is an Ohio State offensive line that if you leave someone unblocked, they will make you pay. This is a defensive front seven that has one of the best linebacking rooms in the country. Chop Robinson as an edge rusher is phenomenal, and they have so many other guys that can generate pressure to the quarterbacks. This offensive line is going to have to play their best game of the season. But if you are the Buckeye defense, you already have a tough job to do to be able to slow down the pace of this Penn State team. And yes, Penn State is a team that likes to play slow. They like the short games. They like the quick out routes. They like the slants. They like their short little methodical runs. In fact, actually, when you take a look at plays this year, Katron Allen only has a long of 18. Nick Singleton has a long of 19. And the longest pass play so far this season for Drew Aller has been 72 yards. But again, the downfield passing game has not worked often enough. So if you are this Buckeye defense, slow down the tempo and force mistakes, and especially get off the field on third down. If you can force Penn State to punt the ball a lot, this is an Ohio State offense that is too good not to score enough points, and it will come up large here. But that's going to lead me into my prediction for this game. The Buckeyes are the slight favorite here with 4 points. That's a major shift compared to what the lines have been in some years past. Guys, this is the big noon game on Fox. FPI likes Ohio State. Vegas likes Ohio State. And honestly, I could see this game going either way. I would not be surprised if either Ohio State walks away with the big home victory or if Penn State goes on the road and pulls off the upset. This game really is a coin flip for me because I think this is a Penn State team that is legit, and I really like the way that Penn State is playing. However, I am going to go with the home side in the Ohio State Buckeyes. I think the Buckeye defense will get off the field enough, and while Penn State may be able to generate, in fact, they are going to generate at the very minimum 3 sacks in this game. I think the Buckeye offense is going to have enough in the tank. I think the Buckeye defense does enough to slow down this Nittany Lion attack. The Buckeye defense may be able to create an extra possession or two, and Ohio State, in a thrilling matchup, will walk away with the big home victory as the Buckeye fans scarlet the shoe. This is going to be a fun one from Columbus. Make sure you turn into it, and let me know your thoughts on this game in the comment section down below. Hey, as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.